that technical team. I can hear him well, but I'm not sure whether the senators at the back can hear him. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the first question, I wish to...
Proceed, Honorable Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to state that there are thousands of Kenyans in the Gulf countries who are employed in various sectors.
I think hold a bit, Honorable Cabinet Secretary. Take your seat. Technical team, we have a problem. We don't know where that mic is coming from. It's disrupting the proceedings. Can you clear the sound system? It's disrupting the proceedings. You may proceed, Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I was saying that there are thousands of Kenyans in the Gulf countries, and I will tabulate the data that we have. We have in total over 400,000 Kenyans in the Gulf states, and I'll tabulate as follows. In Saudi Arabia, the records we have are there are 310,266 Kenyans. In Qatar, 66,025. United Arab Emirates, 23,000. Bahrain, 8,000. Oman, 5,392. Kuwait, 3,515. Iran, 200. Iraq, 150. The total record we have as of to date is 416,548. Madam Speaker, I wish to further state as follows. Kenyans in these territories exhibit high movement between various Gulf states. The numbers given therefore constitute periodic statistics derived from our missions in these countries, further corroborated through official sources of the host governments. It should be noted that not all Kenyans register with our missions abroad, despite being sensitized on the importance of such registrations. Hence, sometimes it is difficult to have very precise data. So, Madam Speaker, under the circumstances, it's not easy at this stage to be able to say that we can avail all the identities of these 416,000 individuals in the Gulf states. The second question was to do with how many Kenyans have lost their lives working in the Gulf states from 2002 to date. The records we have show that the total number of Kenyans who have lost their lives in the Gulf region is 316. The breakdown is as follows: Saudi Arabia, 166, Qatar, 58, United Arab Emirates, 51, Iraq, 25, Bahrain, 10, Kuwait, 6, Oman, 0, Iran, 0. The total, 316. Aspect C of the question, let me see if I've gone carefully. The issue is, what support does the government provide to families of Kenyans who die overseas? And could I provide details on Mildred? Madam Speaker, upon receiving a report on the death of a Kenyan abroad, the first step that our missions do is to notify the family of the demise of their loved one. The ministry does this by liaising with the employer, the foreign recruitment agent, if they're foreign based, and the local recruitment agent based in Kenya to establish information about the deceased and next of kin. 2, the ministry also has a robust counseling department that offers psychological support to family members, including managing of the information, assessment, counseling, preparation for travel for a family representative or family member, and coordination with family members to receive the body of the deceased. The ministry also establishes the migration status of the deceased where possible, coordinates with the employer, the government agencies, diaspora groupings, other stakeholders and the family, while ensuring that the body of the deceased is well preserved ahead of repatriation back home. The ministry also follows up on the benefits and entitlements of the deceased person from their place of work in accordance with the applicable laws of the host country. 5th, the mission facilitates obtaining of a post-mortem report to establish the cause of death and provides necessary documentation to facilitate the repatriation of the body back home. This includes issuing a no objection certification for the body to be transported to Kenya. The ministry also facilitates administrative procedures, including police investigations, if any, and a settlement of hospital and medical bills as appropriate. The ministry also coordinates with the deceased family on the arrival at the arrival port and date and facilitate to receiving of the body. Where the deceased is not employed or out of immigration status, the embassy liaises with the ministry to inform the family to enable them to make necessary arrangements, including sending a representative or a family member to facilitate repatriation of the body back home. Madam Speaker, there are limited resources available in terms of government support and facilitation for actual payment of bills of the deceased, as well as repatriation of mortal remains. However, in extreme cases and on a case-by-case basis, the ministry has invoked such support for extremely needy cases. For instance, in the case of Albania, there was medical evacuation, there was the death of an athlete in Mexico, and a student in Finland, where the ministry had to bear the costs. In many other cases, the ministry works and mobilizes the diaspora through associations to raise the necessary funds to facilitate repatriation.
Madam Speaker,
the final aspect that I wish to respond to is with regard to Madam Mildred Bosolo Lisenza. We got information, she was reported to have died on 5th February 2024 inside Saudi Arabia. The mission established that at the time of the death, the deceased was employed on a valid contract. The mission, also through the recruitment agencies, established the contacts of the deceased's family and obtained a post-mortem report to establish cause of death and preparation of the body for repatriation home. The repatriation of the body took long since the post-mortem report indicated that the cause of death was suicide, and investigations were ongoing which affirmed the same. For this reason, the employer who otherwise is supposed to assist with the cost of repatriation declined to take responsibility for repatriating the body, citing that the death was not a natural occurrence. The ministry, through the embassy, escalated the matter to the labor authorities of Saudi Arabia to compel the employer to resolve the matter as required by the employment contract. I therefore wish to report that the employer eventually, after the pressure, took up the matter, and the body of Ms. Mildred Bosolo Lisenza was repatriated to Kenya on Thursday, 9th May 2024. I submit.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Senator Boni Halone, you have an opportunity now to clarify any issues that you have through asking two questions. You could ask one now and one later, or you could ask both of them right away to the Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would want to ask two questions. One now, then give colleagues an opportunity to raise their issues. Then the second one at the end. The first one, Madam Speaker, it is the policy of the government, at least going by the pronouncements of the President on many occasions, that we try and assist as many youth as possible to get employment opportunities outside the country. Madam Speaker, is it not shocking that despite that policy, the Prime Cabinet Secretary is not able to tell the country the identities of the Kenyans working outside the country? Madam Speaker, that a whopping 316 of them have died while out of the country. It shows, Madam Speaker, that this answer will not only bolster the employers who, in one way or the other, contribute to the death of these people, but also it will discourage parents from yes, Speaker, I know where you're going.
Senator, you do not know where I'm going, Senator Boni, because I have not indicated.
Yes.
I want you to phrase your question. What you're giving now are views or debating the matter. You must phrase a clear, concise, precise question.
Yes, Madam Speaker, on a complex issue like this of death, I believe senators are allowed to build the question. I was building the question, and let me leave it there. Let me not build it any further.
We have 3 cabinet secretaries today coming to answer many questions of varied matters of national importance. I would beg that you make it precise and short and clear so that it's possible for the Prime Cabinet Secretary to respond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what I was building to is that could this Cabinet Secretary be compelled to table the list of all Kenyans working in these Gulf states, so that the parents and relatives can be reassured that the government is on top of things as far as their lives are concerned.
Prime Cabinet Secretary, please respond.
Go ahead. Okay. Madam Speaker, I wish to state that we can, based on the records we have within the embassies, avail, because we are talking of about 400,000. In fact, to be precise, 416,058 individuals. We can work on having this brought to the Senate. I can only appeal on one issue, that as we give the identities, Madam Speaker, you will also need to guide on aspects of whether we'll be breaching some aspects of the data identity issues by tabling all the 400,000. That's the only question. But we are prepared to be able to give this list.
Maybe to give a guide on that, tabling of that data will be subject to the Data Protection Act. So the data may be tabled but subject in compliance with the existing laws within those parameters, so that the individuals are equally protected as that evidence is being given. And then it will be subject to release or examination to the senator who is requesting for it, not for public display, without the consent of individuals who are working in the Gulf. Thank you. Honorable Senators, you now have an opportunity to ask questions, but make sure you are not building the way Senator Boni Alwale was building, to save on time so that we can accommodate many more. Senator Derito Kenywa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question that I wanted to ask is the same question that Boni asked. We needed specific, at least I'm happy that he tabulated the numbers. I wanted specific, what are our people, the 400 people, what are they doing in terms of profession? Are they teachers? Are they doctors? Are they house helps, Madam Speaker? And again, our embassies, when we travel outside, when we meet with our people, most of the people that we talk to, they don't seem that they are facilitated by our embassy. Our embassy, most of them, Madam Speaker, they complain that they are humiliated in our embassies. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the workers are varied. There are some that are highly skilled professionals. They range from highly skilled professionals, and we also have some that are engaged in the service sector. Some are laborers. So it's very broad. But as we said, we will, subject to the guidance that the Madam Speaker has given, we will be able to provide a background on this. The second aspect I would want to say is that we have our missions trained to give all the assistance that we can possibly give. And I can assure Kenyans that if indeed there are any incidents of what might be seen as a lack of courtesy, they are very limited. Most of the mission staff in our embassies have been very, very courteous to the Kenyan citizens abroad.
Thank you. Senator Osotsi Gofri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, allow me to thank Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is also from my county and a friend, for appearing before the Senate. I represent a county that has a problem, a major problem with what we are discussing now, Madam Speaker. And I think every year we have in excess of 12 people cases which are reported to me. And on various occasions, Madam Speaker, I have brought questions and even engaged the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the same. So what I would request the Prime Cabinet Secretary is if it is possible to give a breakdown of these figures per county so that we can understand the extent of the problem. Number two, in the process of dealing with this problem that is common in my county, there are occasions where we are told that some of these people travel to those countries through unregistered cartels of some recruitment agencies which are not licensed by the government. So there is every possibility that those who die and they were taken there by these recruitment agencies, possibly the government does not have their data. So what is the ministry doing about this? The issue of unregistered and unscrupulous recruitment agency who take advantage of the plight of these girls and boys to recruit them through illegal means, and then these people end up dying or harmed in those countries. What is the government doing about this matter?
Cabinet Secretary, respond to that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to state that definitely there were some challenges in the past, and we are trying to resolve them because we didn't have proper and accurate data. But I can assure the House and the nation that through the Department of Diaspora and also working with the Immigration Department, we are now establishing more accurate data of the Kenyans that are traveling to various countries, including the Gulf states. Also on the websites of the State Department for Diaspora, we are able to indicate the licensed recruitment agencies, because in the past we have had cases where the Senator is right that unscrupulous people have taken advantage and landed our Kenyan people in very difficult situations. So we are trying to streamline this. And in between, let me also just notify the Senate that we are also improving on our negotiation on what you'd call the labor or employment agreements with various countries. And we are making them much better, much more refined, so that the safeguards can be provided for our Kenyans. And the classic example now is in Germany, where we are just about to conclude an agreement of a labor framework or employment framework, and we are refining even those that relate to the Gulf and other states. Equally, Madam Speaker, I want to mention to the House here, the Senate, that the points they are raising are valid and important, because one of the things we intend to do is to be able to have a sessional paper that will be brought to Parliament, and some of these issues we would like to draw from the knowledge and experience of Parliament, so that we can improve on how we engage with foreign countries on some of these issues. But we are making steps to change the situation.
Okay, thank you. Senator George Ungai Bogwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would want the Cabinet Secretary to tell this House how far the operationalization of the Migrant Welfare fund has reached. Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Madam Speaker, that is work in progress because the Labour Migration Bill is supposed to be debated and cleared by Parliament. So that is work in progress, and then we shall be able to establish how the fund shall operate.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi Ogola.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, for finding time to come for our questions, and probably to also guide fellow CSS that the questions we ask here are on behalf of the Kenyans that they're appointed to lead. My question to the Prime Cabinet Secretary is, Madam Speaker, why does it take the embassy sometimes a long time to respond to the distress calls of Kenyans, especially in the Gulf, taking into consideration, Madam Speaker, that the government is capable of tracing the details of Kenyans as they exit and as they enter those countries at the immigration points? Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Madam Speaker, as I said, it's not as easy as it may appear sometimes, but our missions are making every effort, particularly in the Gulf, because sometimes our Kenyans don't then communicate. Once they have landed and they've gone to where they're going, they don't communicate, and we sometimes get to know only when they are in a state of distress. So these are some of the things we are hoping to overcome as we establish better data and better communication networks. But I want to assure the Honourable Member that we will not tire. We'll want to do the best we can to support our citizens wherever they are.
Senator Adan Dulo Fatuma.
Chair, let me welcome CS to this House. I think part of the issues I wanted to raise has been raised by Senator Osotsi, and CS has tried to assist. My problem is with the agencies, because most of them actually they are not genuine. They're not also giving proper information. And I think as a ministry, you need to regulate them properly. Number two, Chair, if the credible agencies can be cascaded to the county level, so that those who are at the county level can be able to identify, because that particular area provides employment to our people. So if it can be cascaded to the county level so that they can know who are credible and they can apply through them or get employment, it will be better. I thank you.
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Madam Speaker, first of all the agencies that are registered are available on the NEA website. That is the National Employment Agency website. And this information is also shared with the NGAO. This is how we cascade it through the county commissioners all the way, so that this information is available at the district and county offices as well. But one thing that remains is that through this National Employment Agency, there are regulations, and we are trying to weed out all the entities that do not fit the bill, that are not fit for purpose. So this is an ongoing process, and we are also ready to receive any further ideas on how we can tighten the noose around the bad elements from this House and other Kenyans.
Thank you. Senator Mutinda Tabitha Morin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me start appreciating the Prime Cabinet Secretary for the good job that we've been doing as far as digital literacy is concerned through ICDL. I take this opportunity to appreciate you. Also, just to inform you that I'm the owner of the Labour Migration Management Bill that you've just mentioned. It's my bill, and we can be able to work together to solve these issues. Two questions that I have. What MOUs currently do you have in your office with the Gulf countries where our people are working? And are there any rescue centers in these particular regions? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 19 MOUs are being negotiated as we speak. We are quite advanced with Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Saudi, and we have a few rescue centers. We have a rescue center in Saudi Arabia. And the other one, Madam Speaker, is that we are looking for resources. And this is a conversation we have had with the budget committees of Parliament to be able to obtain resources so that we can put up more rescue centers. That is one of the biggest challenges that we face. But once we have sufficient resources, we shall roll out a few rescue centers.
Thank you. Senator Mogeni Eric Okongo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also want to thank the Prime Cabinet Secretary for appearing before the Senate to respond to the questions posed to the Ministry. Madam Speaker, I want to write on the question that was asked by Senator Alwali and ask a supplementary question. And I want to make a disclosure that I did raise this matter before the Prime Cabinet Secretary, so he's aware. And I thank him for having accepted to receive me when I went to raise this question. The case of Joshua Mankone Amenya ended up in Somaliland. Could the Prime Cabinet Secretary give us an update whether there has been any progress to secure the freedom of this Kenyan held in Somaliland? And two, just a clarification on the response by the CS. He says that Kenyans are attracted to work in the Gulf states because those countries provide high economic prospects for Kenyans. Could the CS kindly give us a breakdown on earnings for Kenyans who work in the construction industry, agricultural industry, and the domestic workers? How much do they earn in those countries? Thank you.
Prime Cabinet Secretary, can you respond to that?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I must state that on the issue of the level of earnings, that is data that would require a little more time to obtain. We may not get the precise, but we may try to get the range, the salary brackets, and then we can also avail that. On the issue of Joshua Makone Amenya, I wish to state that indeed it is true that the Honourable Senator did see me in the office with our other citizens, senior citizens like Chief Justice David Maraga and the family, the parents of Mr. Amenya and also his wife. And I wish to state that after the conversation we had, I did call the representatives of the Somaliland, the representatives of Somaliland, and we held talks regarding the unfair treatment and incarceration of Mr. Amenya. And they then said that they would be going back to their headquarters, revert to the headquarters and come back with an updated position. Unfortunately, to this date, they have not come back with a comprehensive response as to why they continue to hold this gentleman. I would also like to let the members know that this is Somaliland, not the federal government of the Republic of Somalia. So we have not stopped in pursuing the agenda. I continue to push it personally so that we can have a response and hopefully facilitate the release of Mr. Joshua Amenya, because the circumstances under which he is being held from where we sit are clearly unreasonable. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Cabinet Secretary. Majority Leader, Senator Aaron Cheriot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just have one question to the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and I appreciate the precise answers that he's giving to the issues that are being raised by senators, which is quite commendable. I see the Prime Cabinet Secretary is accompanied by, among others, the PS for Diaspora Affairs. Therefore, my question is in regard to the 19 bilateral labor agreements that he alluded to earlier, and I have heard the President speak about it in public forums on many occasions. Do we have a timeline of when we are likely to conclude on them, and what is a likely impact in terms of, one, job opportunities, numbers, and two, the cadres of scale, because there's misinformation outside there by cynics who imagine that the bilateral labor agreements are only for manual jobs, but not professional working opportunities for educated Kenyans. Therefore, if we can have a timeline, Madam Speaker, we'd really appreciate, because we've had about this conversation for quite a while. Can he give a commitment before this House that by such and such a time we'll have concluded on these agreements? I know it's a cross-cutting issue between his ministry and that of Ministry of Labour, but that's where his cap of being Prime Cabinet Secretary comes in handy, because his duties overlap as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wish to state that indeed these 19 agreements are work in progress, and they're at various stages because they're bilateral. So you are ending up negotiating with different countries. But we have some, for instance, Germany, we are likely to be able to conclude by September. And indeed, not too long ago, the German Parliament has now passed a bill basically affirming this policy, where they'll be able to take many migrants, and Kenya was trying to secure a slot to have close to 200,000 slots in different areas to be able to go and work in Germany. And I wish to state that we are not, these negotiations are not just about now what you call laborers. We have a skills policy that is being worked on so that we can have even doctors, we can have other technicians, teachers and other people who are qualified and skilled in different areas to be able to also benefit from this arrangement. In the case of the United Arab Emirates, for instance, we have more or less concluded a CEPA. This is a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, and part of the issues that we are alluding to are also now embedded in that agreement. So there is progress, but I would like to assure the members that each country has its own issues, and we try to navigate on a bilateral basis with those individual countries. But we're making good progress, and we will try to accelerate where possible.
Thank you. Senator Onyonka Richard Momwem.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. CS, I'm happy to see you, even though you're covered by the presidential, but I'm sure you're seeing me from where you are. First of all, I would like to say that I'm happy that you're dealing with this issue. I have previously, as you are aware, worked in the same position you're working now. And one thing that has shocked me, Madam Speaker, is that the things that we were talking 10 years ago, it looks like nothing actually did happen. So I would like to ask the Minister to tell me that out of all the bilateral labor agreements that you've signed with the countries that you've signed, the question I wanted to ask you is whether you are proactively, and if indeed, as you say, that these agreements are going to deliver some fruits, whether you're proactively engaging yourself in preparation to make it possible that when these people are able, our people are able to go and get these jobs, they could be handled and managed in settling in and what needs to be done, and whether the Minister is aware that the reason why the labor contracting agreements in our country and the reason why our people keep suffering out there once they go to those countries to work is because most of those agreements are actually hidden. Nobody knows what actually is written in there. Nobody understands what the terms and conditions are. So I'm hoping that when the Minister has signed those agreements, he will enable the Labour Committee of the Senate to interrogate that agreement and make sure that we are able to understand what is in it and what we have gained, and if any, what the terms and conditions are. Madam Speaker, the last issue, which is a continuum of the same question I'm asking, is that I don't know whether the CS is aware that if you look at social media, somebody came and posted where they say that they are currently in the US, in Iowa, and out of the 400 people who are now Kenyans who are working in Iowa, this gentleman realized that all the 400 come from one given Kenyan community. The question I wanted to ask the Minister is whether he's aware that his government is recruiting individuals according to their tribes and shipping them over to whichever country they are going to work, and whether he's trying to solve that problem given the fact that Kenyans are expecting equity and fairness when these opportunities come, particularly given that many of us in the Senate represent the county governments. Can the Minister promise this House that when those positions come out and they're going to be distributed to Kenyans, particularly those ones that are targeting certain areas, that all our 47 counties are going to be included, and they will also get the small cake of whatever that the government is trying to bake? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to state that one of the things we want to pursue in government and even in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is an open government policy. By open government policy means that we do not intend to hide any information. We want to share information with Kenyans. They're entitled to it. And therefore, when we conclude any MOUs, they shall not be hidden, they shall be made available to the relevant committees of Parliament. And as I said, Madam Speaker, is that one of the things we are also planning to do, to bring before Parliament, is a sessional paper to have our members deliberate and guide appropriately on Kenya's foreign policy, foreign and diaspora policy. Because all along, this has been confined to the executive, documents are confined to the executive. We want, for the first time, a comprehensive discussion on Kenya's foreign policy. And some of these issues, I'm sure, we will benefit, that document will benefit immensely, or be enriched immensely from the wisdom of Parliament. The second thing that I want to emphasize is that these recruitments have been largely private sector driven. They have not been government driven, but the government will not entertain an ethnic driven arrangement when getting people opportunities outside the country. Madam Speaker, some issues are historical, and we all know them. For instance, and my brother, the senator, is very vast in this. He knows that if you went to Minnesota today in the United States, because of historical purposes, you're likely to find a certain inclination of Kenyans, because there were those who broke the ground in that area, and they tend to then invite more and more to come. If you went to LA and Atlanta, you'll also find a similar pattern. So there are some aspects that were there because the pioneering Kenyans who went there earlier laid ground for a number of other Kenyans to join them. So it is not a deliberate policy of government to pursue that. But thank you for highlighting that, so that as we reflect on these opportunities, we remain national in outlook. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Cabinet Secretary. Senator Ekomwa James Lomenen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would want to ask this question to the Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister aware of the Ethiopian military who have infiltrated a place called Anona in Sololo sub-county in Marsabit?
Senator Lomenen, you know there is a cardinal principle. When you are asking for questions, there must be an offshoot of the primary, the principal question that brought the Cabinet Secretary here. Is your supplementary question in line with that policy?
Yes.
How?
In infiltration of Ethiopian military in Sololo sub-county in Marsabit.
I would guide you to phrase that question, give it to the Secretariat, and give an opportunity to the Prime Cabinet Secretary to come and substantively respond to such a crucial and important question. It does not emanate from the data he's dealing with, those Kenyans working in the Gulf. The original question, consult Senator Halwale. He'll give you the primary question that was asked. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza ni mpongeze waziri kwa taarifa aliyotoa. Mheshimiwa Speaker, niko na swali moja ambalo limegawanyika pande mbili. Kwanza, je, serikali inajua kwamba Mkenya kwa jina la Stephen Bertrand Munyako, passport number A353019, kwa sasa yuko Saudi Arabia na anatarajiwa kunyongwa ama kuuawa kupitia kwa hukumu ya kifo mnamo tarehe 26 mwezi huu wa 7, na ni jambo gani ambalo serikali ya Kenya inafanya kuhakikisha kwamba maisha ya Mkenya huyo ambaye alikuwa ameshtakiwa na makosa ya kuua bila kukusudia yameweza kuokolewa, na vile vile pia kurudi Kenya kujiunga na familia yake ikiwa mama yake na pamoja na Wakenya wengine. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala la pili ni kuhusiana na Mkenya mwingine kwa jina Nixon Daudi Mwango ambaye alihukumiwa na kwa sasa ameachiliwa, lakini bado yuko katika jela ya mjini Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, kwa makosa ambayo pia mahakama haikumpata na hatia, lakini anatarajiwa kurudi kurejeshwa nyumbani kwa sababu ya kumaliza kesi hiyo. Na mwisho, Mheshimiwa Spika,
you should only ask 2 questions maximum.
Zinalingana, Mheshimiwa Spika.
Let him respond to those 2, Senator Faki. I have 5 more senators here.
Thank you, Madam.
And we need to move to the next.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary, please respond to that.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, we are aware of the case of Stephen Bertrand Manyako, who was incarcerated on a case of manslaughter in Riyadh, and I wish to state that a few weeks ago I did write officially to the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, intervening that this individual should not be executed. That execution was deferred. It did not take place. I also had the opportunity to meet the family of the mother of Stephen Bertrand Manyako, and we had a conversation. And the challenge that is there is that there is a proposal that is being mooted by the family of the person who died, that they be compensated to the tune of 150 million, equivalent of 150 million Kenya shillings. Madam Speaker, the family has raised about 10 million shillings, and they continue to try and raise more money, because this is what they call the blood money, some financial settlement for that. And clearly, it would be remiss of me not to notify the nation and Parliament is that there is no budgetary provision for the government to settle this kind of situation, whether in Saudi or any other country. But the ministry and the government is doing what it can to see if this matter can be resolved differently, and perhaps if the family that lost their individual can perhaps climb down from the high level of 150 million Kenya shillings so that this case can be resolved. So it is work in progress. It's a conversation that is ongoing. The second one, which you talked about, we are yet to obtain information, so I will not be able to respond immediately to that specific one. I will need a little more time to get more details on that one.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Cabinet Secretary. Yes, you can get more time to supply that answer because it's specific. Senator Agnes Kabindu Mudavadi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Let me first of all start by congratulating the Cabinet Secretary for making time to appear before the Senate from his very busy schedule. Mine is just a concern about our ladies, our girls who go to Saudi to work, because I've interacted with many of them who have managed to come back after
much suffering, that their passports are taken by the bosses who they go to work for and kept there. Many of them, the agreement they have with the agents is that they are going to work in a particular house, and once they arrive there, they find that they are located to work in different homes, like 3 or 4. Some tell me that they work even in 6 homes. So they hardly have time to rest. There are also mistreatments of food. And once they escape and go to the rescue centers or to the police station, they find that they cannot be allowed to travel back home because 1, they have no funds to travel back home. 2, they have no traveling document because the document is kept by their bosses. What is the ministry doing about such issues to make sure that our people are safe and secure? And why can't also the agents who are not registered be arrested? Because majority of them are known. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary, you'll answer this question, and I'll request the senators, 3 more senators wanted to ask questions, and he still has another question to tackle. We can consolidate your questions with the next question. You can still ask him in the next level. So you can answer this as the last question on this segment of questions.
Madam Speaker, I just want to say that NEA, the National Employment Agency, has actually eliminated 700, so far, 700 rogue agencies from the register who are associated with not handling the labor issues professionally. The other thing that I would say is that when these Kenyans get challenges, the embassy has always been available to provide emergency travel documents to assist them so that they can travel back to Kenya and move away from the hostile environment. And we continue to do so. And in fact, the Saudi Arabia Center is perhaps the most active in issuing emergency travel documents or certificates for Kenyans in case their passports and documents have been held. The final point I would just like to say on this one is that the unfortunate side is that sometimes it's the fewer cases, bad cases, that tend to cloud the actual picture. But in reality, 90% of the workers, particularly the ladies, when they come to Kenya for a short break, they go back to the same venue. So the mistreatment, and we are not downplaying it, but we are trying to rein in so that that mistreatment can come to an end. And these are the areas that we want to refine as we negotiate our bilateral agreements.
Thank you. There is one more question from Senator Boni Halwale, so that we can close his section of questions. Make it short and precise.
Yes. Madam Speaker, the government of India, Philippines, and Indonesia have labor and social protection bilateral agreements with these Gulf states. And as a result of that, Madam Speaker, their workers who are there are better paid than Kenyans doing a similar piece of work. Could the Cabinet Secretary undertake to table in this House, in the shortest time possible, such bilateral agreement so as to protect our young people who are being paid 30,000 shillings as housemates, when those ones from the other countries that I've spoken to get 3 times as much?
From Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I can state 2 things. One, we will not hesitate whatsoever once the bilateral agreements have been signed. We, as I said, we want to pursue a policy of open government. We will be ready to share those with the Parliament. So we shall not have a challenge on that score. The second aspect, which is important, and I think I take it as an input from the Honourable Senator, is that our negotiating skills, even for the recruitment agencies and others, should be stepped up so that we can have more comparative and fairly more reasonable and comparative agreements being negotiated. So we should not negotiate ourselves short when we are negotiating for Kenyans. I take that positively. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of this question. I now call upon the Senator for Kisumu County, Senator Professor Tom Ojienda, to take up and ask the question he had brought, question number 040.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 040 addressed to the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs is in 4 parts, Madam Speaker. Could the Cabinet Secretary outline the obligations of the government to Kenyans in the diaspora who face arrest, detention, and deportation, and highlight any diplomatic agreements entered into with other countries on the applicable protocols? But B, what protocols has the government of Kenya established for readmitting deportees into the country? And could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of Kenyans deported back to the country since 2010, stating reasons for each case where a deportee was refused admission? Thirdly, how does the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs handle complaints and reports of human rights violations against Kenyans in the diaspora before, in the course of, and after detention and deportation? And could the Cabinet Secretary disclose the number of Kenyans who have died in detention, and also provide details of all court cases initiated by Kenyans regarding such? Lastly, what measures has the government put in place to safeguard dependents and property left behind by deportees? And could the CS also explain the initiatives taken by government to facilitate the integration process for the deportees? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The first aspect is I would like to inform the House that consular officers at our missions abroad normally visit Kenyans in distress in the host countries, such as those in hospitals, detention centers, or prisons. They offer assistance that includes issuance of emergency travel documents to Kenyans in the diaspora at home who may be in distress and want to voluntarily return. And this is in line with the 1963 Vienna Convention on Consular Relations that provides for general functions of a consulate, which includes protecting the interests of its nationals, both individuals and bodies corporate, within the limits permitted by international law. The consular functions listed in Article 5 include issuing passports and travel documents to nationals of the sending state and assistance in succession matters. Further, Madam Speaker, Article 36 of the Convention confers the following rights to a consular officer: right to receive information regarding the arrest of nationals of sending states, the right to communicate with the arrested person and vice versa, that of the arrested national to communicate with the officials of the sending state, in this case our mission staff. There is also the right to visit the national of the sending state if in custody or detention to arrange for legal representation. And D, there is the right to respect the wish of the arrested national, including not to take any action expressly or on behalf of the national. However, these rights can only be exercised in conformity with the laws and regulations of the receiving state. I also wish to state that the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Act, Cap 170 of the laws of Kenya, provides for issuance of emergency travel documents for Kenyans facing deportation and sets out conditions when someone can be denied entry. Madam Speaker, I would want to point out that so far, Kenya has entered into an agreement with South Africa regarding the return of nationals refused entry and illegal entrance, which was signed on 23rd November 2022. Under this agreement, it is the responsibility of each country to verify the nationality of the deportees and, where necessary, grant them necessary travel documents. The agreement is, however, subject to the respective domestic laws and international instruments, including the 1969 OAU Convention governing specific problems of refugees in Africa. With regard to protocols readmitting deportees, the Citizenship and Immigration Act sets out the criteria or protocol for admission of such persons into the country. This includes the issuance of travel documents, verification of identity, confirmation of citizenship, right of entry and residence, among others. To this end, immigration officers along the points of entry and exit usually confirm that the person being returned is a Kenyan national before admitting him or her into the country. With regard to the second part of the question, requesting that I provide a list of Kenyans deported back to the country since 2010, stating reasons for each case where deportees were refused, I state as follows. The State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services has informed that the following number of Kenyans were returned on various grounds since the year 2022. We were not able to have information dating back to 2010. So we are able to present what we were able to get, and hopefully we can get the rest later. In 2022, there were 186 deportees. In 2023, there were 378. In 2024, there are 166. So a total of 730 deportees are on record since 2022 to date. Madam Speaker, we wish to state that again, we will need guidance because as much as they are deportees, they have their rights, and to what extent can we disclose the reasons of each individual without breaching certain rights of these particular individuals? So maybe with the guidance of the chair, that is another area that one can seek guidance, but we have given the data of those who were deported. The third aspect is how does the Ministry of Foreign Affairs handle complaints and reports of human rights? In this regard, I wish to state that Kenya recognizes the sovereign right of any nation over their territory, and in managing their internal affairs, including admission and stay of persons in their territories, it is the duty of every Kenyan, therefore, to obey the laws of the receiving country. The protection of human rights is governed by the international human rights laws, which include the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and the International Convention against Torture and Inhuman, Cruel, or Degrading Punishment, among others. The exercise of powers over nationals of another state thus should be within the confines of international law. The Ministry receives sufficient reason, when the Ministry receives sufficient reason to believe that the rights of a Kenyan national could have been violated, the following are some of the measures we take. A consular officer undertakes a visit to the affected person to provide a report on the circumstances surrounding the matter. The Ministry may also consider dispatching a diplomatic note to the concerned state's mission requesting to be furnished with information regarding the circumstances surrounding such violations. Where the evidence is overwhelming and no response is received from the host state, the ministry may issue a demerge where the highest-ranking diplomatic representative, ambassador or high commissioner or charge d'affaires is summoned by the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs and issued with a protest note requesting action. Similar action is undertaken through the Kenya mission in the capital of the country in question, where our ambassador or high commissioner or charge d'affaires presents the displeasure of the Kenyan government on the same and delivers a protest note. The ministry may also consider dispatching a special envoy or other high-ranking official from the capital to appeal or intervene with the host state. Mr. Speaker, sorry, I didn't realize there was a change. Mr. Speaker, let me also point out that we are yet to get the accurate data on the Kenyans who have died in detention. So that figure at this point in time is not available, but we'll be ready to avail it once we have the accurate figure on that particular aspect. Finally, there is the issue of the responses to safeguard dependents as property left behind by the deportees. I wish to state as follows. The ministry so far has no safeguards in place with regards to the dependents and property left behind by the deportees, since such property is governed by the laws of the host country. However, there are other channels available for pursuit of such as a follow-up with the authorities through diplomatic channels if such a matter is brought to the ministry's attention. Equally, where necessary, our missions abroad may pursue the matter through umbrella diaspora associations for knowledge of such cases and what steps could have been taken within the confines of the laws of the host country. Unfortunately, for some Kenyans and in the advent of information and data protection, those who are arrested or are in conflict with the laws sometimes request prison authorities not to notify the embassy or any family members. Lastly, this is binding to the mission since it is in line with Article 36 of the Vienna Convention that requires consular services to refrain from taking action on behalf of the person in prison or detention or custody if such person expressly opposes such actions. The deportees, once verified to be Kenyan citizens, are released back into the country unconditionally. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Cabinet Secretary. Senator Ojenda, one supplementary question, if you have, because we really don't have time. We're running out of time.
Speaker, I thought there was a Gen Z sabotage, but it is a Wednesday. Mr. Speaker, I am satisfied with the responses by the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and as a student of international law and diplomacy, I will reach out to the CS to clarify some of the data that he has alluded to. I am satisfied and I have no follow-up question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senators, we really are running out of time, and with your indulgence, I will have to cut this session short because the other two cabinet secretaries are already here, they've arrived. So I will only allow two supplementary questions, one from Senator Mofire and the other from Senator Juma Issa Boy. And please be very brief and one question only. Please go straight to your question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to revisit the concerns of my senior Senator Lwale on the issue of not having clear data of Kenyans abroad. I mean, should not arise. because our immigration department that clear people to travel at the airport should have the data. Honorable Cabinet Secretary, do you cooperate with the sister ministry for that matter, the immigration department, so that maybe you can share those data?
Thank you, Senator. Senator Isa Juma Boy.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Swali langu nataka kurudia tena kuhusu wafanyaji kazi ambao wanafanya kazi Arabuni, Saudia. Mheshimiwa Waziri, hapa mimi kama seneta wa jimbo la kaunti ya Kwale, kuna shida kubwa sana katika kaunti yangu. Kwa sababu wafanyaji kazi ambao wanafanya kazi kule Saudia, kila baada ya miezi miwili, miezi mitatu, Mheshimiwa Waziri, utakuta kwamba kuna maiti yanakuja Kwale. I'm telling you. Juzi miezi miwili iliyopita kuna mwanamke mmoja kwa jina
Senator, nilitoa agizo kwamba uende moja kwa moja kwa swali lako.
Ndio hilo nenda.
Uliza swali.
Unajua Mheshimiwa Spika,
hadithi mingi hatutaki. Uliza swali.
Unajua saa nyingine mtoto mdogo ataka kuzungumza aseme baba anaza kidogo ndo ataongea.
Uliza swali tafadhali Senator.
Asante.
Uliza swali.
Asante. Sasa Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna dada yetu mmoja kwa jina la Zuhura Swaleh Mwabege. Zuhura Swaleh Mwabege alikuwa akifanya kazi Saudia, aliuawa mwaka jana mwezi wa Disemba. Huyu dada kwao ni Magaoni, sub county ya Msambweni. Aliuliwa na mpaka saa hii familia yake haijapata kwa nini aliuliwa. Embassy yetu ya kule, Mheshimiwa Waziri, mimi nakemea sana, si kama kwa ubaya. Hii embassy yetu ambayo iko Saudia tunataka iamke ifanye kazi. Hawa watu wanaofanya kazi kule wanakufa, wakiletwa hapa hakuna sababu wanaambiwa mtu amekufa kwa nini. Na embassy yetu iko kule kuwakilisha watu wetu. Faida ya kuwa na embassy kule ni nini? Mpaka sisi viongozi tupige kelele, tupige masimu, tuulize ndio maiti ziletwe. Mheshimiwa Waziri, nakemea sana embassy yetu. Na kama nasema urongo, waseneta wenzangu watasema kweli. Ni kweli si kweli watasema Mheshimiwa. Wanakufa na hatupati sababu kwa nini. Sasa hii huyo mama amefariki ni mwezi wa 4. Familia yake mpaka leo hajajua aliuliwa kwa namna gani. Maiti ililetwa mwezi wa 3 tukazika huko nyumbani. Na si mmoja Mheshimiwa Waziri, wengi sana wamekufa. Wengi sana. Si Kwale peke yake. Karibu Kenya nzima wanakufa Saudia na embassy haitoi sababu kwamba huyu mtu amekufa kwa lengo gani? Ameuliwa kwa nini? Wao ni kimya tu. Ukiwauliza embassy hakuna sababu yote Mheshimiwa Waziri. Tunasema embassy iamke ifanye kazi. Mtu akifa walete maiti watuambie amekufa kwa sababu gani. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Waziri.
Asante Senator. Cabinet Secretary, if you could please respond to the two questions briefly.
Thank you. I think let me say that we are not perfect, and the embassies may not have been perfect, but I believe I can be able to obtain information around Zuhura Swaleh and be able to share it even with the family, so that this matter can be put to rest. I also want to state that not all, I'm not talking about Zura anymore, that is separate, but some of the people who pass away in these countries, as we get the post-mortem reports, not all of them are usually about murder, or some are actually normal aspects that come, cardiac arrest, some are afflicted by terminal diseases like cancer, and they're hit. And they end up dying in that place. So we can get a raft of this. But where, of course, it is foul play or it is suspected to be foul play, we always insist on investigations and also post-mortem reports to establish the nature. In Saudi Arabia, we have also now pushed to have a consulate in Jeddah, because not all cases can be handled from Riyadh. So our consulate in Jeddah will also help, in my view, in being able to get more efficiency in Saudi Arabia. On the issue of the data, I wish to reiterate that we did make a commitment that we are available, subject to guidance from the Speaker, because there are issues of data protection, and we want to safeguard that. because Kenyans are entitled to their privacy, and if they are traveling, it would be unfair for me to just table names and say so and so, the son of Mudavadi, the son of so and so has traveled, and you're making it public without recognizing that they are entitled to their privacy. So we need to be careful as to how we release this information.
Thank you very much, Prime Cabinet Secretary, for attending today's session, and thank you for the answers that you've given. At this point, I think we are going to give you leave, and maybe just to mention that we should continue these types of interaction. The questions that are the issues that are brought up to the Senate are usually issues from the public, and they usually demand for these answers. So we hope that we'll have more interaction with you in the future. Thank you very much. And we wish you all the best in your duties, sir.